Coach, you've been in the game for a long time. Have you seen anything like Caitlin Clark? I mean, we watch a lot of basketball. We dissect it all the time. I mean, what she's done in the last 2 games, it's almost bizarre. I don't even know what to say anymore. And I mean, today it's a different story, but have you seen anything like it?
Well, the closest, she hasn't done what you did. So, yeah, I've seen it before. I saw you do it. I saw you take 2 freshmen and 2 other kids that have never started a game before in their lives and win a national championship. Not single-handedly, but do the kind of heroic things that Caitlin is doing.
Listen, Geno's UConn just lost control of Caitlin Clark, and the money is moving with her. Because when UConn doesn't control the biggest star, they don't control the biggest checks. Stay to the end, because I'm going to give you the exact 3-step play Caitlin just ran. The play that flips power from coaches and programs to one player's gravity. Here's the real issue for UConn. For decades, UConn wasn't just winning games. UCNN was deciding what greatness looked like, who got crowned, who got promoted, who got the spotlight. And when you control the spotlight, you control the money. But Caitlin Clark didn't come through the UConn pipeline. She didn't need the UConn stamp. She didn't need the old approval system. She built a movement outside the gate. Therefore, this isn't just a basketball argument, it's an attention transfer. And attention is currency. Think about what the UConn brand really sells. It sells certainty. If you want the biggest stage, you come here. If you want the biggest legacy, you come here. If you want the biggest media push, you come here. But Caitlin proved a different pathway exists. Be undeniable. Build a fan base that follows you anywhere. Force networks, sponsors, and headlines to orbit you. That blueprint is terrifying for a program built on being the default choice. Because once default stops being necessary, it stops being valuable. Now picture this from Geno's side. You build the cathedral. You win titles. You create legends. You become the voice that defines the sport. But suddenly the crowd is gathering outside the cathedral, not because you failed. Because one player created a bigger event than the institution. That's what Caitlin represents. An economic event. When Caitlin's name shows up, ticket prices react. When her name shows up, TV schedules shift. When her name shows up, debates explode. And when debates explode, engagement spikes. And when engagement spikes, money follows. That's not hype, that's modern sports. So when people say Geno versus Caitlin, they're missing the real fight. The real fight is, who owns the attention economy of women's basketball? For a long time, the owners were institutions, blue blood programs, legendary coaches, legacy media. They set the agenda and everyone else reacted. But Caitlin dragged the sport into the creator era, where the star's personal gravity can beat the institution's history. And once you enter that era, a coach can't command the spotlight. A coach can only respond to it. Legends hate responding. Legends want to set the terms, therefore you start seeing defensive language, the she's popular but talk, the system basketball talk, the fundamentals talk, the great player, not the best talk. Sometimes it's analysis, but a lot of the time it's a shield, because if you can't stop the player, you try to shrink the player. But Caitlin can't be shrunk because her power isn't just points, it's leverage. And leverage is what should worry UConn. Here's the domino effect, and if the biggest star doesn't need the biggest traditional program, what do recruits learn? They stop asking, which coach makes me great? They start asking, which path makes me unavoidable? That question kills old empires slowly, not overnight, but quietly, with every decision that moves away from the old gatekeepers. And yes, UConn will still recruit. UCNN will still win games. But the fear is bigger than wins. The fear is relevance. Because relevance drives the biggest sponsorship conversations. Relevance drives national TV prioritization. Relevance drives cultural dominance. And Caitlin shifted relevance toward the individual star. Now here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. When one player holds that much attention, the entire ecosystem bends. Media coverage bends, league decisions bend, scheduling bends, even rivalries bend because everyone wants a piece of the energy. Therefore, even when Caitlin isn't playing, people still talk about her. When she returns, it becomes an event. And when it becomes an event, everyone else is forced to react. That's the part the old powers can't control. Now let's deliver the payoff I promised. The 3-step play Caitlin ran is simple, and it's ruthless. Step 1. She detached from institutional approval. Caitlin didn't wait to be anointed by the traditional kingmakers. She made the public crown her first, and public crowning is stronger than any program's endorsement. Step 2. She built leverage outside the institution. Instead of a program creating her value, she became the value. So opportunities didn't feel like invitations. They felt like people paying to access her gravity. That flips the power dynamic completely. Step 3. She proved she can say no and still win. This is the ultimate control test. If you can turn down a massive opportunity and still remain the center of the sport, you're not being managed. You're managing the market. And that's why the Geno/UConn machine feels threatened. Because once a player can say no and keep the spotlight, the gatekeepers lose their biggest weapon. So no, this isn't a petty feud, it's a power transfer. UConn's worst-case scenario isn't losing a game. It's becoming one of many great programs, in a sport where the stars don't need them to become icons. And the next generation is watching Caitlin like a tutorial.
Targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. I thought Cameron Brink said something really smart. She said, now they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years. But they've been put out to be that because the way social media is today. So what kind of impact is this rookie class having in the WNBA?
If you only listen to one thing I say today, make it this. Caitlin Clark didn't destroy UConn with trash talk. She did it with silence. She did it by making the old powers look optional. If you stay to the end, I'm going to give you the single decision Caitlin made that exposed the real power shift in women's basketball. Not a highlight, not a quote, a decision. And once you see it, you'll understand why UConn and Geno can't just coach their way out of this. Because this isn't about X's and O's. This is about control. It starts with something that sounds small. One phone call, Caitlin has said out loud that she wanted Geno to call her, not because she needed attention, because he's Geno. The biggest name, the dynasty builder, the coach every elite player is told to dream about. But when recruiting time came, the call never came. No real push, no real pursuit, just silence.
There's always going to be somebody that makes the team and everybody's surprised, and there's always going to be some people that don't make the team and everybody's surprised. But that's because they don't have to make those decisions, you know? My favorite part was that nobody mentioned me. So I thought that was really great.
First time in 16 years.
First time in 16 years. I wasn't the reason why somebody didn't make the team or somebody did make the team.
And later, when people asked why, the explanation turned into something uglier. Because Geno didn't just say, we already had a point guard. He basically flipped it back on her. Like if Caitlin really wanted UConn, she should have chased him. Think about how backwards that is. A coach whose brand is built on spotting greatness, telling a teenager to prove herself to him. That wasn't just a recruiting miss, that was a message. You're not the priority. Caitlin didn't do the loud thing. She didn't whine, and she didn't campaign, she didn't drag anyone online. She did the dangerous thing instead. She remembered, and therefore she went to Iowa. No dynasty protection, no automatic national narrative. No UConn stamp that makes the media treat you like royalty before you earn it. Just a program that handed her the keys and said, go. And what happened next is the part people still don't want to say out loud. She didn't just become a great player. She became the center of gravity. Those deep threes weren't just highlights. They were receipts. Every viral clip was proof that the sport could explode without the old gatekeepers. Packed arenas weren't a fluke. They were a warning. Because when fans show up like that, money follows, sponsors follow, TV follows, and suddenly the sport stops revolving around the same few institutions. But the old guard doesn't just watch that happen calmly, that they panic. And you could hear it in the way Geno talked. At first it was subtle. A little praise, a little minimizing, a little, she plays like she's messing around. A little, people have no context.
But it comes from a place where people want it so bad, but it's misguided.
Then he started doing something even more obvious. He kept trying to attach her to UConn. He kept pulling her back into page comparisons. Like if he couldn't own Caitlin, he could at least frame her as an extension of the world he built. But it didn't stick. Because Caitlin wasn't borrowing attention. She was creating it. Then came the moment where the mask slipped. On a big platform, Geno went after the fans. Not the defense, not the shot selection, the fans. He called them delusional. He said they were unknowledgeable and even stupid.
That's the worst part about new fans. They have no perspective. There's no context. So they just say ridiculous nonsense.
All because they believed Caitlin could be in the MVP conversation as a rookie. That wasn't analysis, that was fear. Because what do those fans represent? They represent the market. They represent the new money. They represent the shift. And if you're a gatekeeper, the worst thing that can happen is the crowd stops asking you for permission. But here's where it gets brutal. Caitlin didn't respond with an interview. She responded with results. Rookie of the Year, all WNBA honors, and MVP votes that proved the hype wasn't some fantasy. So the people he mocked weren't clueless. They were early. They saw the future before he did. And that's where the real damage happens. Because it's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be wrong while you're insulting the people who are literally growing your sport. At that point, the conversation changed. It wasn't just Caitlin is great. It became, wait, the old powers don't control this anymore. And when that realization hits, the next step is always the same. Money enters the room, a new league shows up, a 3-on-3 project with big names attached, serious backing, big ambition. But there's one problem. It needs a face. It needs a gravity source. It needs the one player who can pull millions of eyeballs on demand. And that's when reports started circulating that Caitlin was offered over $1 million for an 8-week season.
Stated Dave Portnoy, CEO of Barstool Sports, extended an olive branch to Caitlin Clark, which could retrieve her $10 million a year. Now, the article goes on to talk about the Indiana Fever season, which we can skip past some of that.
Think about that. The same world that didn't call. The same voice that downplayed. Now sliding a 7-figure offer across the table. Why? Because this was never just about basketball. This was about leverage. If Caitlin signs, the story becomes, see, the future still runs through us. The gatekeepers get to absorb her audience. They get to turn her popularity into their platform. They get to rewrite the narrative like they were always part of her rise. But Caitlin saw it for what it was. A late grab for control. A rescue rope. A way to reclaim the spotlight. And here comes the payoff I promised. The moment that should scare every Dynasty program watching. She said no long statement, no public war, no victory lap. Just refusal. And that single word is why people say millions. Because when the biggest star in the sport turns down your 7-figure offer, it changes the perception instantly. It tells sponsors she's not for sale. It tells fans she doesn't need the old structure. It tells every recruit watching that the Dynasty route is not the only path. And for UConn, that is the real fear. Not losing one player, losing the pipeline. Because the next generation is watching this and thinking, if Caitlin built the biggest brand in the sport without UConn, why do I need UConn? And when that question spreads, it hits everything. NIL leverage, media leverage, merch leverage, recruiting leverage, donor energy. Therefore, the cost isn't just imaginary. The cost is the money and attention that could have flowed through the old empire, now flowing somewhere else. And here's the darkest part. This won't be the last time. Caitlin didn't just win games. She showed a blueprint. Build your own gravity. Let the crowd decide. And when the gatekeepers come late with a bag of money, you don't even have to fight. You just decline. So ask yourself what happens next. And if the biggest programs can't control the biggest stars, who actually runs women's basketball now? Because the next power shift is already loading. And the next dynasty that gets exposed might not see it coming until it's too late.